It's strange how silence can feel louder than any noise. I learned that the hard way during my night shifts at a small convenience store just off a desolate stretch of highway. I was 23 at the time, broke and desperate for work. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep the lights on in my apartment. My shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. The store was rarely busy, maybe a handful of truckers, a lost traveler or two, and the occasional local grabbing cigarettes or beer. It was boring, but boredom was better than trouble. At least, that's what I thought in the beginning. The store sat at the edge of town, surrounded by woods on one side and an empty gas station on the other. During the day, it looked perfectly normal, but at night it transformed into something else entirely. The buzzing fluorescent lights inside always seemed a second away from flickering out. The hum of the refrigerator units filled the silence, and the wide glass windows at the front gave me an uneasy feeling like the night was always watching me from outside. I quickly settled into a routine. Restock shelves, clean the counters, scroll on my phone. Wait for customers, repeat. But something about that store at night felt off. It wasn't just my imagination, I could feel it. The first incident happened about 3 weeks into the job. It was around 2 a.m. and the place was completely empty. I was leaning on the counter, half asleep, when I heard it. A sharp tapping sound, faint but distinct. I froze, listening. It came again, 3 short taps. Not from inside, but from the glass window near the entrance. My stomach tightened. I looked up, expecting to see someone standing there, maybe a drunk local playing a prank. But the window was empty. Beyond it, nothing but the dark parking lot, the broken gas station sign across the road, and the endless line of trees swaying in the wind. I convinced myself it was probably just a branch or debris blown by the breeze. I turned away, shook it off. But before I could sit back down, the tapping came again, this time louder, sharper. "Hello?" I called out, instantly regretting it. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the empty store. No answer, just silence. I walked cautiously to the window, pressing closer, trying to see if someone was hiding just out of sight. But the lot was empty, completely still. My reflection in the glass looked pale and stretched in the harsh, fluorescent light. And for a second, I thought I saw something move behind me in the reflection. A shape. A shadow. I spun around, heart hammering, but the store was as empty as before. That was the first night I realized something wasn't right there. Over the following weeks, more odd things started happening. The sound of footsteps in the aisles when no one was around. Products falling off shelves even when they were stacked securely. The backroom door creaking open by itself. One night I was sweeping near the refrigerated section when I heard a voice, soft, whispering. It was so faint, I couldn't make out the words, but it was definitely a voice. I turned, expecting to see a customer, but the aisle was empty. I stood there, broom in hand, listening, and then I heard it again. A whisper, closer this time. It was right next to my ear. I dropped the broom and spun around, but once again, nothing. Just the hum of the coolers and the harsh light overhead. I didn't sleep well after that shift. One of the worst moments happened in December when the snow started falling. The roads were icy, and almost no one came in that night. Around 3 a.m., I went into the back room to grab more coffee filters. When I returned to the counter, I noticed something on the security monitor. Camera 2 covering the parking lot showed a figure standing just beyond the reach of the lights. It looked like a man, tall, motionless, facing the store. My first instinct was to buzz the door lock and shout that the store was closed, but something about him froze me. He didn't move, didn't shift his weight, didn't even breathe, as far as I could tell. I stared at the screen for a good 30 seconds, waiting for him to do something, anything, but he just stood there, half hidden in the shadows, watching. When I finally worked up the courage, I rushed to the front window, trying to spot him with my own eyes. But the lot was empty. The snow lay untouched, no footprints leading to or from the spot where he'd been standing on the camera. I hurried back to the monitor. The figure was gone. That was the moment the dread set in for real. This wasn't just a creepy building. Something was wrong with this place, and I was trapped in it every night. I thought about quitting. God knows I should have. But I needed the money, and every time I considered walking away, I convinced myself it was just my imagination. Stress, lack of sleep. But then came the night that changed everything. The night I realized the store wasn't just haunted, was hunting me. It was late January, the coldest night of the year. My car barely started before work, and I had this gnawing sense of dread the entire drive. When I stepped inside, the air felt heavier than usual, like the store itself knew I was there. For the first few hours, nothing happened. No customers, no strange noises, nothing. Around 1:45 a.m. though, I noticed something strange. The motion sensor light in aisle 3 flicked on. It wasn't unusual, it was sensitive and sometimes triggered on its own. But when I checked the aisle, it was empty, perfectly still. I reset it and went back to the counter. 10 minutes later, it flicked on again. This time, I stayed at the counter and just watched. My heart pounded as I stared at the empty aisle glowing on the monitor. I was about to get up and check again when I noticed something move at the very edge of the screen. Shadow, tall and thin, slipping out of view. Blinked hard, leaned in closer, but it was gone. That's when I heard it, my name. Whispered, low and raspy, from somewhere deep in the store. I froze. Nobody knew me here. I hadn't even told the manager my full name when I was hired, but I swear on my life I heard it, clear as day. Ethan. Hearing my name whispered in an empty store froze me in place. My heart slammed in my chest as I spun, flashlight beams shaking across the aisles. Nothing, just buzzing lights and the hum of refrigerators. The sound had come from the stockroom, the one place I already hated. Against reason, I pushed the door open. The air inside was colder than it should have been, almost freezer cold. Boxes, shelves, nothing unusual. I exhaled, but then, Ethan. This time it was right behind me. I swung the flashlight and caught a pale hand sliding around a shelf before vanishing. My body locked. I bolted, slamming the door shut. Back at the counter, my eyes darted to the monitors. Most were static. Only camera 2 worked. And there it was. The tall, faceless figure I'd seen outside. But it wasn't in the lot anymore. It was inside. On the grainy feed, it moved slowly down an aisle. At the same moment, faint footsteps echoed in the store, perfectly in sync with the monitor. I ran outside, lungs burning. The store behind me glowed faintly. But across the road, the tree line seemed darker, almost alive. I swore I felt eyes watching. My car was parked past the woods, too far. With no choice, I stumbled back inside. The moment I entered, I knew something had shifted. The air felt thick, pressing on my chest. The monitors blinked back to life, but every screen showed me at the counter, frozen stiff, staring back at myself. Then camera 4 changed. The figure appeared in the exact spot I stood, tilting its faceless head toward the lens. I spun, flashlight trembling, scanning the aisles. Nothing, just silence and that unbearable hum. Finally breaking down, I dialed my manager. A groggy voice answered, telling me to lock up and leave. Shaking, I shut everything down, grabbed my keys, and fled to my car, ever daring to glance toward the woods. At home, I collapsed onto my bed, hands still trembling. Hours later, I checked my phone log. The call I made to my manager was there, but the duration was 0 o'clock, as if no one had ever answered. But I had heard a voice. Calm, human, but not his. I didn't sleep that morning. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that whisper in my head, my name, drawn out and rasping. When the sun finally came up, I drove straight to the store, ready to quit. But when I got there, my manager was already inside, counting stock. You left early last night? He asked without looking up. I froze. Yeah, I called you, he said. I didn't get a call. He cut me off, frowning. You're lucky I came in early. Corporate could have checked the cameras. Something about the way he said cameras made my stomach knot. I wanted to argue, to explain, but I could tell it was pointless. He thought I was making excuses, so I kept my mouth shut, grabbed my paycheck, and told him I quit. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. That night, around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A voicemail notification. No missed call, just a voicemail. I pressed play and my blood ran cold. It was the sound of the store. The hum of the refrigerators, the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights, and after a long stretch of silence, a whisper. Ethan. Nearly dropped my phone. I checked the timestamp. The voicemail had been left exactly at 1:45 a.m. The same time, the motion sensor in aisle 3 had flicked on that night. I didn't sleep again. Over the next week, more voicemails came. always in the middle of the night. Always the same background hum, the same whispers. Sometimes it was my name, other times it was just breathing. Slow, heavy, almost wet. Changed my number. Got a new phone. The calls didn't stop. 3 nights later, I woke up to a noise in my apartment. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, but then I heard it again. Faint creak, like footsteps crossing the old wooden floor in my living room. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and strained to listen. Silence. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by my bed and crept to the door. My apartment was small, 1 bedroom, a living room, a kitchen. If someone was inside, I'd know it. The living room was empty, the kitchen too. But when I turned toward the window, I froze. The blinds were open. I never left them open. Ever. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw it. Tall, thin, faceless, standing right behind me. I spun around swinging the bat with everything I had, but the room was empty. My bat cut through nothing but air. My neighbors must have heard me screaming because the next thing I knew, there was banging on my door. When I opened it, no one was there, just the dark, empty hallway. I couldn't stay there. Packed a bag, left the apartment, and drove to a motel 3 towns over. For a while, I thought I'd escaped. No calls, no whispers, just silence. But on the 3rd night, the phone in the motel room rang. Not my cell, the motel's landline. I stared at it, frozen, as it rang again and again. Finally, against every instinct screaming at me, I picked it up. At first, nothing, just static. Then, underneath it, faint but clear, "We know where you are." I dropped the phone and ran. I've never gone back to that town. I never told anyone the full story who would believe me. My family thinks I'm paranoid. My old manager still calls me unreliable, but I know what I experienced. I know something followed me out of that store. Sometimes, late at night, when the world goes still, I swear I can hear it again. That same whisper, crawling up from the dark, pressing against my ear. Ethan. So if you ever find yourself working the night shift alone, surrounded by silence, pay close attention to what you hear. Not every sound can be explained away. And sometimes, once something notices you, it never lets go. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more true horror experiences, don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales.